Okay, this is process costing in the chapter 5. So in the previous chapters, maybe you still remember about that we ever learned about job costing and activity based costing. So to make it clear, you can read previous chapters again to make sure that you can understand all of this costing system. Okay, but anyway, I'm still going to explain in these slides for process costing and job costing, because many people are misunderstood about um, these two things. So job and process costing differences. Okay, this is about job costing. I think you are quite similar, still remember about job costing, that as you all know that job costing is for a specific product, or what we call like customized product, right? So that's why and then that's why you produce the product by order. Okay, that's why we call it as job cost or job order costing. Okay, so individual job cost records direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead assigned to individual jobs, right? Costing of finished jobs flow into finished goods inventory, and cost of sold jobs flow out of finished goods inventory into cost of goods sold. So for this part, you will more understand if you see this figure. This is job costing. Okay, so for job costing in for the manufacturing overhead, which are direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead, will be in each of the job. Okay, so for the manufacturing so in each of the job, you will find direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. In job 101, you will see this part, these things, and these things, and then in job 102, you will see this detail again. Okay, and then each of the job, if they finish, you will record as finished goods, and if they have been sold, you call it as cost of goods sold. That is why here, like this one, if you this is the cost flow of the in the job costing, or the T account in the job costing. So when you use the raw materials inventory into the production for each of the job, for example job 101, okay, job 100, so you will record raw materials inventory on the debit and on the credit side, and work in process inventory on the debit side. And then you assign like workers to work on that job, so you will record wages payable on credit and work in process inventory on, this is on credit, and this is here on debit for work in process inventory. And then you apply the manufacturing overhead. You will record manufacturing overhead on credit and work in process on debit. Okay, and then if it's finished, you record as finished good inventory, and if if it has been sold, you record as cost of goods sold. So you only have work in process, one work in process here. Okay, that is job costing. But how about the process costing? Process costing has the series of manufacturing processes. They have the series of manufacturing processes. They have like process A, process B, process C in the production process. And then cost per process is accumulated and moved from one process to another process. So you will see the cost of production, cost of manufacturing in each of the process. Okay, cost transferred to finished goods inventory only from the work in process inventory of the last manufacturing processes. So you have process A, process B, process C. So the what we call the ending work in process of the last step will be the finished good, right? Because you transfer it from here, and then you transfer from this process to this process. So the last work in process of process 3 will be sent. If it's finished later, it will be sent to we will record as finished goods. Okay, and then when the units are sold, you will record as cost of goods sold. You will understand when you see this. So this is process costing. In the process costing, you will see the manufacturing cost in each of the process. Okay, you have process A, process B, process C, centers process, shells, and packaging processes. So in each of this process or departments, you will see direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. In this shell process, you will see these three. In this packaging process, you will see these three things. Okay, so that is why in the cost flow or in the T account, so when you use the a particular raw materials inventory to start the production process, which is this is the starting process, right? So you will record raw materials inventory on credit, and then here work in process inventory centers, and then on debit, and here this one on credit, work in process inventory centers on debit, manufacturing overhead on the credit, work in process inventory centers on debit, right? And then from the process, right, from the centers process, you will send to the next process. We call it as shell process. So you will transfer the work in process of this step to the next step. Okay, not only that, sometimes when you process this one, you need another raw materials inventory to mix here, and manufacturing overhead to mix here, and then another or other team to work on this work in process. Okay, so that is why when you transfer the work in process from the process 1 from the process 2, you will record work in process inventory centers on credit and work in process inventory shells on the debit side. And then if you put another raw materials into this process, you will record raw materials inventory on credit side and work in process inventory shells on the debit side. It goes the same with the wages payable and manufacturing overhead. And then from this step, you will after finish this step, you will transfer the work in process to the next step. And then you record this is on debit, on credit, and this is on debit. And then maybe sometimes you put another inventory, another things, and so on and so on. You do the same things. Okay, so I really hope that you can see the difference between process costing and job costing, right?